Yes, hello to today's Net Theatre Channel session on the laboratory, Internet as a site of play. In this series, our respectful Net Theatre Channel tries to assemble events and mistakes, chance discoveries, messy beginnings, and inventions that are vital to find a new idiom for theatre making. For our lab, nothing is too holy. We welcome errors, and we think that glitches are necessary to find a fresh language for performance making in this digital times. So our series will look at experiments, failures, and it will play amongst outlier artists and their glorious exercises. And to unpack these issues today, we are happy to host the protagonists of a very recent net theatre production that took place in India, namely the Lonelyhearts Club. The Lonelyhearts Club started actually on Instagram on March 25th, 2020, which also was the first night of the lockdown in India. The Lonelyhearts Club then developed from Instagram to a Zoom performance a few months ago in 2021. So in this Lonelyhearts Club performance, we will discuss with a bunch of its performers, but also with the person or the entity that conceived and directed this. And this is no lesser than Mrs. Lonelyhearts herself. So I welcome Mrs. Lonelyhearts.
Thank you.
Let me just give some information to our esteemed audience about you, Mrs. Lonelyhearts. As one clearly can see, you're half cat and half female identifying human. So you were born, you once told me in a poem, which was a kind of a happy accident, like most of the births are. And accidents, errors, glitches are Mrs. Lonelyheart's mainstay. She often malfunctions, stumbles on ideas and creatures by chance. Mrs. Lonelyheart's desires are immense, carnal, feral, and viral. She dreams of a post-domestic life, of inserting her persona and leave a digital footprint to claim her space. A global, glamorous, virtual life of hers, hearts, emojis, and followers pulsating 15 seconds of fame are fascinating to her. And cats, she learned, are immensely popular on the internet. She has the makings of a viral star. She imagines memes created in her likeness. So Mrs. Lonelyhearts, for short, is an attention seeker and received it most of the times. So she is, like I said, the conceiver and director of Mrs. Lonelyhearts Club that we will talk today about. But Mrs. Lonelyhearts brought some of her performers with us, performing entities, maybe also some animals among them, we will see. Let's start with the Ren-C, who is with us today. There they are. Ren-C, nice to see you both. Ren-C, you passed me like a message in a bottle about your biography, and I read in it that you have been living on the internet since you stumbled upon pornography when you turned 15. Right. Oh, okay. A late bloomer, you describe yourself. Since that form of entertainment grew old and unrewarding over time, she ventured into the darkest corners of the internet to sneak and watch the dirty, secretive lives of ordinary people. Knowing that they don't know what she does gives her immense satisfaction and pleasures now. That's Ren-C. And along Ren-C, we are happy to welcome another performer of the Lonelyhearts Club, who is Sophie. Sophie R. is a photograph making, motorcycle riding, hot-headed, raunchy existence and an experience. Does she like being watched at? By the authorities? No. But for those with the right spice quotient of intimacy and wonder, she holds the potential to quench all those dark sides. The confines of your room and safety of being behind a screen stands no ground when she tugs on your strings. You aren't on your knees yet. She always liked the rebellious ones. More fun to break, she says. That's Sophia. And still, we are happy to announce two more guests of the Miss Lonelyhearts Club performance. Next with us, we have Dr. Manjima Bhattacharjya. So, Dr. Bhattacharjya is a sociologist who studies sexy things. She flies on her broom from webinar to webinar, dazzling transnational national audiences with her blingy outfits. Her internet is often unstable, as mine is. So she is the one saying, "Can you hear me?" in every call. She has actively attended, wow, I'm just reading that number here, 6,307 Zoom meetings in a very short time period. And someone should give her an award for that. She'll take cash. Or in today's world, Google Pay is fine too. And now let's give a hand and welcome to the last guest from the cast of the Lonelyhearts Club, who is Kadomborie. Kadomborie. Wow. So Kadomborie is a fantasy, a figment of fictional reality birthed by the internet straddling in the graves. They write, they provoke, they politicize, and just when you thought you've had enough, they might pander to your desires, or is it theirs? So this is no lesser than the cast of Mrs. Lonelyhearts Club, but we have another guest on board here, and this is no lesser than a person that might be familiar to the regular watchers of the respectful Nettheatrechannel, because it's Lotte Leeker. So Lotte, please join us. Lotte Leeker. For those who still don't know about Lotte Leeker, she is an activist for digital enlightenment, exerting wherever it is necessary, leaking and conspiring against digital culture's secrecy, fakeness, conspiracy, data economy, and users' credulity. Her motto is, like to leak, need to leak, in favor of humor and ambiguity. She's also engaging for making the internet a more equal space, giving a place for the old, promoting performing aging as a strategy to explore norms and bans in social media. She received the famous Dr. Olglas medal during an undocumented ceremony in Leutkirch, Allgäu. So that's Lotte Leeker. And she was investigating for a long time now this project of Mrs. Lonelyhearts and her club. So together with me, she will pose questions, comments, and she will annotate this project. So now in the beginning of the show, we saw like 10 or some seconds of Mrs. Lonelyhearts Clubs, which was a huge success. in the Indian internet, or in, how to say, in the people that consume internet. And but for the people who were not able to watch it, so maybe Mrs. Lonelyhearts, you can talk us a little bit through the history of this project, and maybe also explain a little bit how it unfolded online on Zoom, I guess. So what has happened? What has one seen when one came to this show?
Thank you, Kai and Lotte Leeker for inviting us all. And I'm so happy to see all my co-makers on this screen. So big love to everybody. Like we said, the Lonelyhearts Club began on Instagram on the first night of the lockdown in India. As my name suggests, I was extremely lonely that night, and I wanted to invite other people into my home. But we couldn't allow human beings into our homes because with them would come the virus. And so I chose the next best thing, my telephone that connects to the world around, and Instagram, where I love to post and I love the hearts I get there. And I invited people to join me every night at 11 p.m. with their stories of the erotic, the playful, the cheeky, the naughty, the promiscuous. And I realized there were a lot of people like me who were lonely. Around 50 people contributed every night. And most of them are here on this screen with us, at least 5 of them from that night and that series of Lonelyhearts Club. I was very excited. A lot of people started slipping into my DMs. Those who use Instagram will know. I had dirty messages, I had kinky messages. People wanted to send me photographs. Some of them did. Somebody sent me a photograph of their toe. It was meant to turn me on, but it just made me laugh. I was very excited by the attention I was getting from all types of creatures. And so it happened that I realized that maybe along with the Instagram handle, more people need to see it. And we tried to make a show on Zoom. But before that, all the people who had contributed, Ren-C, Manjima, Kadomborie, I started to look back into their lives. So from March 2020 until June 2021, I was watching them perform their various selves on Instagram. Sophie, I happened to meet by chance online as well. And then I invited them to share part of their lives with a larger audience. And lo and behold, Ren-C was a fellow voyeur. I was so excited that she was watching all of us as well. And as we heard, Sophie loves to be watched. So in a way, I gathered a bunch of sexy outliers and we made a show on Zoom. That was the beginning of the Lonelyhearts Club on Zoom.
And for the people who haven't watched it, Mrs. Lonelyhearts, can you tell us a little bit what then has happened on Zoom during this Zoom show of the Lonelyhearts Club? What can I imagine?
Oh, wow. The first thing that happens in the show is you watch Jaya, who has just come out of her bathroom, and we see her moisturizing her body and really being in an environment where we think nobody is watching her, but the entire audience is watching this character do very personal things like hygiene things in the morning. And suddenly we have Ren-C, who peeps in a fisheye lens, and we watch with Ren-C Jaya, who's not aware of our existence. So Jaya is a person who we all have been watching, all the characters and our audiences, since the 1st of October, and poor Jaya doesn't even know that she's being watched. So that is the first person we watch collectively as an audience. And then Ren-C takes us into the world of the other performers and storytellers who like to be watched. So I just want to point out that we don't have Jaya's consent to watch her, but we all, the audience included, continues to watch her. And then we have stories that Ren-C becomes our narrator because she's really a playful person and a great storyteller, you'll see very soon. We then go into the lives of 9 characters, people, creatures, personas, who tell us about what is erotic for them.
And maybe that's that's a good point. Maybe the performers now, when we start even with Ren-C, since you mentioned her, can tell us a little bit about their character and what their character is contributing to the show. So Ren-C, would you please start?
Yes, hello. I usually walk around in the internet finding interesting stories only of erotica. Sometimes not of erotica that is simple and like direct. And sometimes it is quite titillating. So I follow these people and I sneak into their beings, their virtual beings, and share it to the others. That's in a nutshell.
All right. So let's hear from the other performers, please.
Well, I'll go. Seizing the moment seems to be the kink of the hour. But, I differ a bit to what Ren-C said. I do not follow anyone. I let others follow me. And I think that in itself has its own definition of erotic, how you manipulate the gaze, how you let others sort of let you in their spaces, and their desire to do so, their intimate desire to let someone know that they're watching them and they're following them. And I guess social media serves as a good platform to dwell in those desires. And Lonelyhearts Club served as one such great platter where we served it up and how. And that's pretty much the beginning of it. And I guess I'll let the others also chime in.
Sorry, Kai, can you repeat the question, please?
So actually, I was asking about what your characters are doing in the performance. So still, we're like a little bit in the moment to establish a little bit for the audience what is happening in the Lonelyhearts Club. And now we're trying, after listening to Anuja, to Mrs. Lonelyhearts. Oh my God, what a glitch! To unpack a little bit the actions of the show by listening to the performers.
Well, great. So in the show, I've been invited by the Center for the Lonelyhearts Club, which is a very prestigious academic department specializing in gender, sexuality, and the digital. And I've been invited to give a talk on erotica. And that's what I go there to do, to really read out a paper, which is in 3 parts, performed across, I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but we all love being on screens. We have many screens to be on, and it's a new, exciting, thrilling adventure, really, all these screens that we're on. And so this was an opportunity to not just be passively looking at a screen, but to be inside or be on screen without the space in between on and screen. And I think that was the exciting part, to really be on screens, shall we say.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I want to start with asking Kai and Lotte Leeker, what gets you on? What gets you turned hot and a little bit, heavy breathed? Are you a little bit turned on right now? A little bit? Do you think you might be? No?
Not now.
So
but we still have an hour, right? Let's see.
There you go. There you go. So that is Kadomborie's job mostly. She lurks around, in these digital spaces, the grays of the internet, and she tries to find out what turns who on. They try to then gather those information and use it to their eroticism. And then they come here and tell you those stories.
All right. So Lotte, how is it with you? Are you turned on, or what is turning you on?
I will tell you that by the end of the day.
Okay.
I have to say I'm turned on by Kadomborie because we seem to be like sisters, brothers, whatever, something in mind and in heart and in body and in flesh. So finding complicity, this is right now turning me on. And I'm very turned on by all these figures with their glittering and Ren-C, so wow, sexy. Yes, I have to say.
That's wonderful to hear, but we're just getting started.
Yeah, what a wonderful start. So let's unpack it more from here. It's a question actually open to the whole cast of the Lonelyhearts Club. So now we talked a lot about, or even already starting in your introduction, about pornography, erotics, which is heard from Kadomborie. She wants to turn people on and is concerned about turning people on, and the question what turns them on. Sophie R was talking about being looked at. So clearly it's about something very bodily, very physical. The show seems to deal with desires, and you're all communicating this through this interface through which we are meeting now, the Zoom in your show. So how was that for you? I think a lot of people, me included, would assume that to talk the desire through such an interface might be a little bit, to say the least, the challenge, might be a little bit challenging. So how did you face the challenge? A question to the whole cast. So.
Kai, to be honest, I think there was a lot of unlearning involved. Because in our everyday interactions, we don't talk about desire or being sexy or feeling sexy. But the internet and sex or sexuality have been so closely connected since the very inception of the when the internet became popular because of, I don't know which theoretician called it the 3 A's, the triple A engine, because it was accessible, available, and anonymous. So the anonymity in particular made it an excellent platform for people to talk about and explore their desires. And so that's the power of the internet in a sense. And I think we had to learn how to get past many social barriers to be able to really explore parts of ourselves that we wouldn't have. We were already so vulnerable because of the pandemic. I think everybody was in a different zone. And so that helped us really open ourselves up and really engage differently in a more intimate way.
And go on.
No.
Go ahead.
I agree with a lot of things that Dr. Manjima has shared, especially the anonymity. When we met, the lot of us, we were more than willing to share our stories. For example, I have never met Kadomborie in person, nor have I met Sophie, nor Dr. Manjima. And I have known them for almost a year now. And I know their darkest, deepest, dirtiest secrets. And it seemed to me that it's a little more easier to be vulnerable with people I barely know than with maybe people I know a lot.
What I want to add there is the fact that the pandemic also left us, bereft of touch, right? So we had to find, so digitalities became our go-to medium for connection. In those isolated spaces, I think we learned to use these digitalities for it to find ways to eroticize us. And I think that process of learning to eroticize ourselves first, before transposing the erotic onto another, onto the physical, I think that process became very integral in the process of the creation as well.
Also, giving into what Dr. Manjima was saying, yes, while there was a lot of unlearning, there was also a lot of sense of familiarity one found online, which we were suddenly taken out of when we were locked in. But we were familiar with the digital spaces. We were familiar with exploring our sensualities and sensitivities online. That was always there. That was always a means we explored. But now, I think the pandemic just sort of emboldened us to take it that one step ahead and see what we can do with it. And sort of, in a way, make it work for us. And in that, I think we, as Ren-C mentioned, we have not met each other, most of us. And yet, I believe that we have shared more than what we would on a normal account share with people we meet on a physical basis on a routine level, probably, because this space emboldened us. This means emboldens us. And while it emboldens us, I would also like to speak for those who watch us. It emboldens them too. And then it becomes that interactive. That interactiveness, I think, helps this flourish. And I think that's the response we got to the show. And we all sort of toyed with everyone that was there. We all love toying with people. And we did it. And I think that was an experience which was only possible through this means, while it sounds away from the norm, where we talk about the erotic and the touch and the other things. Being behind a screen, one wouldn't think that this was possible, but yet the darkest, deepest, dirtiest, sleaziest toenail picture kind of interests flourished. And here we are.
I just want to add to all the things that all of them have said. I think taking off from the anonymity, the internet sometimes allows you to be whoever you want to be. For me, for example, the internet or Instagram, I can be a sexy cat if I wanted to, and escape my domesticity and never be held really responsible because they don't know my address. They may know my Instagram handle, but they don't know where I live. All I have to do is deactivate my Instagram account and I vanish. I love that kind of low stakes relationships that online interactions give me, a bit like ghosting. It allows me to be highly promiscuous and I can vanish almost without a trace. And I think that's also the nature of the erotic interactions that we had. I don't know Sophie's address. I've never met Oish. So if they decided not to be a part of Lonelyhearts Club, I wouldn't know where to find them. You could vanish. So I like that idea of vanishing if it's too much.
So that means actually, Ms. Lonelyhearts, you are highlighting here the absence of the third dimension as something potential, also as something that provides a kind of a security. Because I feel this is actually what my initial question, I think, was about. Because of course I'm not naive. I mean, I know that screens and the internet produced pleasures now for decades for people. Like we were talking about the pornography, which is a total screen-based, internet-based thing nowadays. And it's all like playing out in a two-dimensional screen. It provides you an image that enables you to have imaginations that are not, like, say, verified through the real concrete third dimension of a body that can confront you, that you can touch, that you can smell, that comes with more realities than just the 2D image. And I think a little bit in this juxtaposition of the 2D image imagination and the 3D body and physicality of another, I was posing this question. So, but now I already understand a little bit. So it can be something good because it provides safety, the absence of this one dimension. But is there something more one can talk about breaking the desire into a two-dimensional space?
I wouldn't limit it to just the two-dimensional space. I mean, that is probably where we are right now. But I can't help but get excited about the possibilities that we hold with technology. There is always virtual reality, there is artificial intelligence, there is machine learning that exists. And these are all things that can be made slaves to us. They are available. We can use them as we wish, but the possibility of this turning into something, we could have a digital pleasure center, which could be reimagined from visiting a generic website which has pornographic content on it, but rather an experience of the erotic. And I think this sort of lays the groundwork to proceed in that direction. But I can totally see this happening in a virtual reality space where you could just be sitting in a park and someone's turning you on.
Sophie, there's something I want to add to that. Like we always, like the pandemic has thrown up this question a lot about, how do we get to the erotic through digital interfaces where quote unquote real does not exist, right? I want to ask this question that real for us has shifted over not just the pandemic, but over the internet, over the existence of the internet. What's real, what we consider real has also shifted considerably, right? So now if I reverse the relationship and look at the internet's existence, the internet exists, like the internet has been upheld by pornography. Like the internet exists because porn creators started to use it, and there was enough traffic that the internet, like beyond the use by the military, which is where the internet sort of came up from. It was the creators, the adult film, what we call the adult film industry. That is what sustained the internet. So I think this conversation around the internet and its connection to desire has been channeled through digital interfaces for a very, very long time now, like you were saying. I think the pandemic just made us, allowed us to collectively sort of acknowledge that. It allowed us to sort of bring forward shows like these where we are, able to have these conversations so openly without, it allowed us to give up the shame or consider questions about, okay, is porn erotic? Is there a difference? What do I find erotic? So I want to just say that also I think that a lot of erotic is what is in my head, is what I can draw up from the references, right? Like an image, a painting could be erotic. So I think the internet just provides that interface like most other forms could. I think the pandemic just allowed us to collectively sort of give up the shame and kind of acknowledge it.
So, meaning you are all not missing the body?
No, we are. I am. But not as much as I would. But having said that, I would like to, here's a question to everyone who's here. Would you be open to experimenting with a virtual reality form of this show and seeing if that titillates you, if that gets the right kind of juices flowing, if I may so speak?
But I think it'll be nice to stay with the question. Sophie, we'll come back to that as well. But I also like this provocation of, are we missing the body? Is a pulsating body, Ren-C, that you speak of in the end, bloody body, is that something we miss?
And sorry, also coming back a little bit to Kadomborie's thought. So I mean, of course, this is all real, right? That's not to discuss. All these virtual screen-based, image-based forms of pleasure, desire, they are real. They are real as digital objects. They are real in the effects that they have physically on me. But I think while expanding reality to that side, one also, I mean, this is what I try to find out in talking to you guys. One also has to be cautious, not then to limit reality on the other side and getting rid of the body and the embodied ways of encounter each other. And I was just curious to hear how you balance this when you come up with such a erotic 2D imagination-based show. So this is, I want to hear you talk about it.
Go ahead, doctor, after you.
Thank you, Ren-C. Couple of things. One is that, yes, I think the lockdown, we did miss bodies, but honestly, it's probably not. I mean, in India, we have bodies. I mean, we get onto a bus, we get into a train. There are so many bodies around us. So it's actually, we are like always rubbing against each other. It's a different kind of a relationship with our own bodies and other bodies. So it's a little different, I think, when we talk about India and pleasures, and often it's not really not having a body. It is about creating a connection. And I think that, desire is also seeking and creating connections between people, and, really carving out little spaces to connect with each other. And that's something that this opened up a crack to do that. And on your question about the 2D-ness, I don't think that it was actually 2D in a sense that, each of these little screens is an entry point into a very three-dimensional life that each person has. And so the reality behind me, I can tell the weather, like a lot of, you can tell the fan is on above me, and which means that it's a warm day in Mumbai right now. And, other people will know, who speak to me regularly will know that, oh, it's cold in Bombay, your fan isn't on. So they're able to sort of see the backdrop and get a sense of my three-dimensional life. I will have my children coming by, someone will go to the toilet. So it's actually much more, our lives emerge as more three-dimensional, I feel, multi-dimensional, as Sophie said, beyond just three. Ren-C.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm going to start off from what Dr. Manjima just shared. I always seen erotica in sort of 2D spaces, whether it is like written or oral, oral, the one that you hear, or the visual, the one that you watch, all of them have always remained in a space of, so to speak, 2D. When we come with the Lonelyhearts Club, it is the first time that we are presenting an erotica that interacts with the people who consume it. So in that sense, I also think yes, sure, certainly we have a screen right here, but in the sense it's also experiential, which makes it, I think, a lot more non-2D. I won't go as far as to say 3D, but not so 2D as it is. And also, yes, most definitely I miss bodies 100%. There is no doubt about it. But it's also, so this is how the world is, and we are trying to connect through this pinhole, trying to reach out, touch, smell, hold each other.
I think I want to admit something, to comment something, because in the beginning, when I saw your show, I was very disappointed. Disappointed in the way that there was no pornography, no erotica as I imagined it. But there was a joy of body. So to come to the questions Kai is putting on, do we lose the body? Do we lose the third dimension? There was just a performing of body, a performing of erotica. And this gave me back my body, because I saw it's not about my private, deepest and most secret things, but I can play around, I can perform something, I can invent something, I can imagine something. And it was possible because your screens and your performance, your offer became like a place of confidence. Yeah, I remember Ren-C asking people, what is your most secret things? And so, but I enjoyed the performance of Ren-C, and it was not, and I thought by myself, oh, I could try to perform myself. It was for me finding back my body. And then, of course, I can go back in whatever world to, with my body that I found in your performance, in your offer, in your ideas, and in the world you created, this world of confidence that which come by performance. So in a way, it's a performance giving a body, and it was not about pornography. If people now think, they showed naked bodies or people doing sex or whatever, one could have been disappointed.
I really want to back what Lotte Leeker just said. Because, I just want to say that I think there are two things actually. I feel like it's a little like polyamory. Like we've learned to qualify the digital intimacies slightly differently than we qualify physical intimacies. But that doesn't mean one is lesser compared to the other. The digital intimacies have their own kind of flavor. Like I have an intimate interpersonal relationships with each of the people in the play, and I've not met any of them in flesh, right? And some of them know secrets that some of my closest friends don't, who I've grown up with. So I think personally speaking, it's a little like that. Like we've learned to qualify it differently, and they all come in their own special flavor of erotic and intimate. And the other thing is going back to what you were saying about finding the erotic in your own body first, and I think that is what sort of allowed me to come and occupy that space and try and titillate and find the erotic or seek the erotic in the other. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you guys for this intervention and these interventions. When I was seeing the show, I think one of the first, or let's say the strongest impression that I had was really about this joy that you had talking about the body. So this, what one could say with these buzzwords of today's, like this sex positivity and the body positivity that it had. Maybe that was also very striking to me, relating to, let's say, the environment that now shapes my discourses and my mind right now, which actually I would say is more or less coming from the opposite side, like so, where you are rather used to, let's say, talk about the feminine body as something that is potentially something that could be victimized, that has to be protected, and this very strong affirmative output of your bodies, your vulnerable bodies, your gendered bodies, that was really striking to me. So because that was really a tone that I haven't seen for a while. That might be connected to my location here. But I just want to hear you talk a little bit about what were the responses that you get in regards to this, let's use it again, so extremely sex positive, body affirmative, carnal approach that you guys had. So what were reactions?
Before we come to reactions, I'd love to hear what the reactions were. And just to put in my 2 bit about the body, and actually Lotte, you saying that, we didn't see people having sex or naked bodies. We've also wanted to play with an expectation of what erotica is. Erotica could be somebody sitting in their living room, like we see with one of our characters, and by chance her daughter walked in. So the erotic is different things for different people, and also what mainstream media in India does to marginalize bodies in relation to what is erotic is very prescribed. We also wanted to break that, and we also had a lot of conversations about the erotic can be playful, the erotic can be joyful. It need not, sexy doesn't always have to be heavy. Sexy can be funny, can be clumsy. That was one thing. So it was a very conscious effort to make it vaudeville, playful, big, because also people were in a pandemic. And I'm very aware that we spent a lot of time in the pandemic measuring my oxygen on an oximeter. The body has been digitized so much in the last 2 years. We were very aware of that. All of us were coming from that idea of parents being ill, people's oxygen levels dropping. So while making the performance, I think the body is very present. A lot of us, I stand and do all my shows now because sitting really took a toll on the body. Like Dr. Manjima, she did 6,000 Zoom calls. I may have done way less, but bodily I could feel sitting in front of the computer being destroyed. Our bodies are very present. Our erotic bodies through the screen is very present. And I really want to say something provocative, that the screen is a strong medium to convey the sexual energy or the powerful energy of the body. It transcends it, it allows it. I'm less conservative as says, oh, we miss the body. Of course I miss the body. But what it does when I'm sitting in front of 7 of you or 8 of you, I feel powerful while talking now. So something is going on where my body is extremely present. So I feel like all of us also worked on it as performers, where we did tasks where we had to put off lights and show parts of our body that we were very afraid of showing to the public. So we did good old-fashioned performance theater exercises of improvising with the body, of improvising with light. So I felt like it was charged from the beginning, and the body has been present because it takes a toll on us. Even through the screen, it's taking a toll on my body as I speak sometimes. And yeah, we miss bodies, but this is a good halfway point.
And also, just to add on to what Anu was saying, I think we also, this is Lonelyhearts, noted. Just to add on to that, we also, I think, at multiple layers started dealing with the conventionalities of bodies, the conventionalities of eroticism. And which I think it was high time we started addressing that. And we did it in this, we managed to explore it in a rather fun manner, rather interactive manner. But I think this also sort of exposed a lot of the limitations one had to understanding the body and the erotics and what our conventional means to it were, as opposed to how they're constantly evolving and how there is not any one correct way or any defined amount or defined method to it. I think that conventionality, breaking those barriers of conventionality, was something which we also at some point managed to explore here. And as Kai asked, the reactions to it, a majority of those reactions were pertaining to it not being conventional, to it being something just not, at least in the Indian spaces, not seen. I can speak for Indian and Middle Eastern spaces. These are not things that are explored nor participated in nor offered. So this sort of, walked a lot in terms of taking those walls down.
So I want to actually respond to what you said about, it coming across as body affirmative, sex positive, and so on. So we were actually not trying to be politically correct. And I think we were very clear from the beginning that, that's not what we're aiming for. We're not aiming for political correctness, but we still want to be political. So we may have had a different show if there was another set of actors, right? It would be a different show because their ideologies would be different, their perspective would be different. I think all we were trying to be honest all the time, and as Mrs. Lonelyhearts has said, it took time to get there. And I think we wrote a manifesto. Actually, we wrote the Erotica manifesto. Each one of us contributed what we thought would be part of our erotics manifesto. And and we did what we did actively was try and really be inclusive, whether it was through the language, through or trying to really have it in different languages, including Marathi, Hindi, Urdu. There were elements scattered throughout. So we tried actively in that sense. But I think the manifesto was a wonderful way of actually articulating and getting down the politics of what we felt was erotic.
I don't know in which sense you mean, Dr. Manjima, the notion of being political correct or political correctness, because I thought it was highly political correctness, because every kind of sexual orientation, relationship, imagination had a place. It was of highly diverse, high diversity, and equality, being equal, being against notions of erotic or sex or whatever, but to have a big open world. I came as Lotte Leeker because I wanted to leak. I had nothing to leak in the sense that I wanted to show people secrets. There had been secrets, but you could only invite people, come to us. And I learned so much of acceptance, being open in your performance, being open for whatever. In a sense of political correctness, a nasty word in European contexts, because it's also used by right people, but not to judge about, but to hold back with judgment, but to be with and to be in it. And so it's, but this is the politics, I think, what you mean. This is the politics of diversity, the politics of going against the image of the women's body as being an object of whatsoever, or whatever's body. It could be every sex or gender body. This is to point out relationship. And in this context, I think Kai's question was so important. What the erections of people, did people got it? Or what had been people disappointed because there was not enough sex or erotic or naked bodies, or because it was too much for them to see different kinds of persons, of orientations, of relationships. So,
let's dwell a little bit in this question, because I saw Ren-C already opening her mic 2 or 3 times. Maybe you wanted to relate to that.
Yes, I will. About the political correctness, I wanted to say something. I don't know whether we were intending political correctness as much as we were avoiding major controversies. So erotica is not a very open thing yet in the circles that we are. I mean, it is still very elitist. So we did come up with stories that were bordering on political incorrect, dark, scary maybe. And we chose to avoid telling those stories for joy, fun, etc. That's one thing I wanted to highlight, because there were a lot of discussions, conversations. Should we have that? Should we have this? Should we have that? Should we have that? Went on for quite a bit. And then we decided maybe not. Also because we do not know who is consuming this at the end of the day. And so maybe using another buzzword, we were trying our best to keep this space very safe. Exploring our diversity, not being apologetic about it, but also keeping it very safe, as safe as we could by being risky. So the reactions that I have personally heard were either that it was not titillating enough, or, oh my goodness, I got such an open space to tell about my dirty secrets. it was never about oh, you guys have pushed it, it's risky. It was not really on that terms, because let's face it, we were not being very risky, but we did try to, but we chose not to be too risky. That's it.
I have something to add here. I feel like in India, there is so little conversation about sex, erotic desires, at least in the arena of sexualnesses, sexual behaviors or sexualnesses, that happens out in the open without, like, that doesn't happen in private circles. That, you know, there's so little conversation that happens on public platforms. With the pandemic, I think that has shifted a little bit. But I think the fact that we were comfortable in presenting our sexualnesses to the audience, I think the audience was also reacting and responding to that. I particularly remember noting how everybody was gushing to respond, you know, on the chats. And so that kind of struck me that, you know, the conversations around sex and sexualness and these erotic behaviors, I feel like we try to, when we say safe spaces, we also try to create a space for the audience to participate in those conversations and explore their own, you know, share their own little promiscuousnesses, or, you know, their own escapades. So, you know, I mean, I feel like that joy sort of translated onto the audience in terms of, okay, you know, I can say this without thinking, oh, what will they think of me, etc., etc.
I just want to add this thing about safety. I don't think the safety came by chance. I think the audiences we invited are highly curated audiences. I mean, there's a whole process that went into who gets the invitations, and the audiences were invited to fill in a Google Doc form. And we asked them questions about when was the last time you masturbated? Do you like being watched? And I have to say, the audiences held this show up. God forbid this audience was a right-wing male audience from North India. The same performance is incredibly risky. I mean, I will say that this is a risky performance. It's not a politically correct performance by any stretch of imagination. It is because we have literally chosen to let certain people into the Zoom room in order to protect ourselves, is that it seems so joyous and simple. Anything anybody says, and if there is an audience member who's Hindu, right-wing, male, or, you know, from a different understanding or social strata from all of us, it could be highly dangerous. So I have to say that it's safe and joyous because the audience is a highly curated audience. And in that sense, for me, it's not risky enough. Can I take it to Uttar Pradesh, which is full of the right-wing government where, you know, BJP has a stronghold? Can I show it to those people? Certainly not. Our audience was still an urban, English-speaking, more or less, audience that were our friends. I think so. It's the context within which the performance was placed that also made it safe and joyous. And the audience of who was allowed into this room, I have myself deleted emails and, you know, people who wanted to be part of the show. If it was a dodgy email address, I deleted that person. So there was a background check on who is let into the audience to participate as well. We had to be careful. And therefore it's joyous and seems politically easy.
So there is this other weird person, right? Anuja Ghosalkar, going around in the world and claiming to have made the Lonelyhearts Club. And I read an interview with her where she was talking about the lockdown as a chance to do new ways of theater and exploring new modes of making theater. So she described the lockdown, and meaning also the locking down of the existing institutionalized theaters as a chance for expanding the possibilities of theater. Now, I don't know how you, Mrs. Lonelyhearts, relate to that person, but maybe you can tell us how you relate to that argument of hers.
She's a fraud. That's the first thing I want to put out there. She's a fraud. She's trying to steal my artwork. She's stealing my project all the time. Because she has really fancy words in English that she uses, and she can write a bit, and all these international connections, and most importantly, access to funding. So I was a bit upset. Now you've hit a really sensitive nerve. But I have to think that, if it weren't for the lockdown, we wouldn't have agreed, #cancel for sure. The theaters are shut down, but she's coming from a very elitist point of view. She has stable internet connection. She has electricity in her home. There are so many people don't have computers. Most people in India have mobile phones. You see, for them, the internet is the mobile phone. So of course, it's easy for her to say theaters should lock down and we will have new forms of performance making. Yes, if you're English speaking, if you're based in a city, yes. But I, in my domestic space, my husband pays my Wi-Fi bills, right? He sees how much data I consume on my phone. So I think it sounds good, but we got, for me, Instagram is important. And that was my understanding of it. Lockdown of theaters, but so many people lost jobs. So many theater workers lost jobs, So
Okay.
I don't know.
So I see you oppose her, right? So partly maybe because also she has a dog and you're a half cat.
Yeah, I'm not a dog person. They're always chasing me. That's true.
Yeah. But still, let's stay a little bit with theater. How has the material, like I said, so you started the project from the Insta kind of performances, the Instagram performances, and then it developed to this Zoom performance. Is there material that is reappearing in the Zoom performance from these early Insta performances? And how did you select, curate materials? And how did you shape them? Like very dramaturgical questions. Can you talk a little bit about that?
There is the material in the Zoom show is entirely original. Nothing that appeared on the Instagram handle appears again, except for Ren-C's poem in the ending. There's only one text that reappears, but we realized that people on Instagram consume things very fast. And there were no visuals on our Instagram stories. It was a black screen and only audio. That was another reason I was very excited that I could say, cinnamon buns or morning glory, and people would get to read or hear Kannada poetry, erotic Kannada poetry. So that was very exciting to me. But on Zoom, we realized that, these people are very presentable and charming. So we wanted to focus on the visuals. And we also worked as a group in a writing workshop. In June, all the participants were part of the writing workshop that was done by Zui Kumar Reddy. We wrote in June, we let the material sit, and then in September, we re-looked at what we had written in the writing workshop. So it came from a week-long writing process. So the writing was separate from creating works on Zoom that were to do with visuality and voyeuristic and the form. So writing was a strong part of it.
I see. And sorry to bother you again with this person that is a fraud, but she runs around, right? And is telling people that there will be a physical show of the Lonelyhearts Club. Is this right or not?
This is absolutely right. And this is what I'm saying. My baby is being taken over from me because this person has access to funding. And it's only my appeal to my performers, to stay with me.
And then now I'm asking also myself, is this even making any sense? to make a physical show out of it, since so the body components that we are discussed are also powerful and well thought in this two-dimensional space. So why the need at all to make it physical?
You know, Sophie helped me hack into a meeting this person was having a few weeks ago. She had a meeting with some funders and she was giving them the treatment note. And she said she wants to take, now you tell me how it sounds to you. She wants to take these performers and put them in an actual room, in different rooms, okay? And create entry points of looking into the room. There could be a peephole, there could be a crack in the wall, there could be a glass. So to really put these 9 performers in a physical space, the audience looks in from different vantage points and they tell the story. And then she said something very frivolous. She wants to make it a party, a celebration of bodies, as Manjima was saying, a sweaty celebration of bodies. So the idea of looking in, to really physically take people and look in. And also because Bala, who's actually still my friend, but if he continues to work from the university, he will be live streamed from University of Santa Cruz. So she wants to use this very fancy word that everyone's using called hybrid. So to do with, or one more story we heard, you know, where they want to call in, there will be a phone call and the performers on the other side behind the glass. But to take the idea of looking in quite seriously, physically looking into their lives.
She knows how to talk to funders, I guess, right? So hybrid, that's a strong thing. And also, I mean, what you're talking about, like this peeping into art, I mean, it really gives you strong associations with Duchamp's Étant donné. So, you know, where you just look through a hole in a door and you see a naked woman with this lamb lying before this waterfall. So it reminds a little.
Yeah, but in Hindi, we have a word called ashleel. Like it's now really shameful, you know. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. We have 2 more shows to stake our claim online because I can't leave my home. So, you know, if they do the physical show, I would like that they give me some credit. That's all I can say.
And are the performers of the crew facing similar problems? I mean, are there also weirdos out there claiming your identity, stealing your part of the show? Or is this not happening to you? I'm asking the cast.
I have stolen someone's identity. So there's that.
I'm trying to get mine acknowledged.
I'm just using the space to, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I have an imposter out there who says that she's just written a book called Intimate City. She has a J in her surname too.
All right. And how is it with you, Kadomborie?
I was just saying that Kadomborie is a created identity. So I'm just fond of creating more identities. So maybe that's what we'll do with the physical spaces.
Okay. I see. Maybe also like circling it back one time to the theater. I don't know. I mean, have you engaged a lot with, let's say, the conventional proscenium theater? At least I know that Sophia, you had like some contact and exposition already to theater and the theater world. We met in such a context even one time. I mean, I just want to hear a little bit, how is this performing for Zoom, this conceiving, directing for Zoom, like different from any other existing performance experiences you had, theatrical or even real life? I mean, we also perform in real life.
Yeah, turning that back into performing in real life, as I say, I've been performing for 28 years in the closet. That kind of gives me a little interesting take on performative things. But apart from that, I think at least in my personal opinion, it sort of exposed us to this unexplored territory that was just there for the taking, but never utilized. And also, I think it also gives a means to a lot of these narratives which do not get, as Mrs. Lonelyhearts' imposter keeps funding. This opens up a lot of that possibilities which conventional theatre probably couldn't afford to a lot of creators, a lot of performers. And in this sense, there's also a sense of security, a sense of safety for a lot of the narratives to explore the wild side of things, the non-conventional side of things, which maybe a physical space would be a bit too intimidating to right away get into. But yeah, I think Zoom was I think it was almost all of our first experiences. I don't know about the others, but putting out a performance and it was at least for someone like me who's not from a conventional performing space, this sort of eased me into performing, if one may. It didn't come with the baggage of, oh, there has to be a physical stage, there has to be an arena, an audience to deal with reactions of in-person feedback, which could have been jarring in such a in such a topic. But this, I think, this space did a great job at sort of taming the beast, so to speak, and putting out a very polished sort of a product.
I just want to weigh in quickly here, because while Sophie says they were not performers, 7 out of the 9 artists are not performers as in trained actors, but they all have other artistic practices, which was very powerful for this show. People like Tushar, who's not here, is a filmmaker. Manjima writes, Kadomborie acts a bit, but also writes. I think and Sophie's a photographer, Sabu's a singer. So the things that they brought from their other artistic practices to this constellation was extremely exciting. Bala's a PhD scholar plus a singer. So I also sort of drew on their strengths of their other practices. So Sophie, who's a photographer who's always looking, really talks about the camera acknowledging her. So their artistic practices were very inherent in it. And if Kadomborie was, she's comfortable to share what she was doing simultaneously while performing the indie pleasure artist. So a lot of their real lives, quote unquote, real lives and other practices came into it. And I think while it is difficult to direct people on Zoom, there was one aspect of safety, that they were in their homes. That was the one good part. But we did do very straight acting exercises. We did work with, in the likelihood that technology fails us, can we deliver a story to the camera? If our lights go off, if the internet flickers, can my story hold? So something really rudimentary is what we worked on quite a lot. And what somebody, as I was the outside eye, I worked on was really shining each of their personalities, really working on what is inherent to some of them, whether it's the challenge, whether it's the nervousness, whether it's Manjima's academic tone in which she speaks, really to push that further, to make it their personas. Which was exciting. And of course, I worked with a strong visual director called Moksha, who's trained in cinema. So it was quite cinematic. We did try things with filters, with movement of the camera, which for me is exciting because I'm interested in the visual and the cinematic medium. And also Zoom. I mean, I've been on Zoom from the first day to make it fresh and to make it a bit exciting. We worked on Zoom from the word get-go. And I actually also curiously had one question, and we can come back to that, to somebody like Ren-C. Ren-C said that if I'd asked her to take off her clothes, she would do it happily. But the very fact that she had to share her home with me and her cats, actually, was something that you really had to think about. What was it about being okay to expose your body but not your living environment that gives you anxiety, for example?
Right now, you're in my house, and I have placed these two mirrors such that you don't see parts of my house that I'm not comfortable with sharing. For example, I have my masks, my face mask, the mask, not the mask I wear in person, but the mask that I wear to protect myself from COVID, hanging there, which I'm embarrassed to share. And I am a very private person. I am a trained performer, and the performance that I do, the caricature that I do, is my biggest mask. So to bring the camera into my house, my furniture, things that define my likes, my personality, my personality when there is no audience is not usual. So just bleeding into the question that you are asking, how was it different to perform in front of a pinhole of a camera on Zoom as opposed to going on stage and performing? I find going on stage and performing so much more easier because I know that I'm cloaking myself with this personality. But when I am in my house, there is very little that is in my control. My cats can walk in. I will react to my cat the way Ren-C, not this persona, but another persona that I've stolen, reacts. And maybe the training that I've had makes me uncomfortable to show my vulnerability, that side of my vulnerability. It's not rehearsed. It's truly reaction. So, and here I am working with at least 7 people who are not trained theater people. So, or doing it professionally. Probably they are trained, but they're not doing it professionally, and they haven't got, that is not their second nature, so to speak. So this has been very difficult to accept that, okay, there will be parts of you that you have kept hidden that will be visible sometimes beyond your control. So that has been a real difficult space or thing to overcome. I've not still overcome it, but I'm open to having to work through Zoom more, and in the hope, and also questioning why, what is my identity as a performer? Is it really that different from who I think of myself? Yeah.
I think for me, sorry, go on.
Kadomborie, please go ahead.
Manjima Di, thank you. What I wanted to say is that I think for me, I for a long time, I worked on digital platforms before I started doing theater, some about 4 years ago now. So this was the first time I actually performed on Zoom, okay, or, trained on Zoom, so to speak. So when I actually got back into theater, for me, theater was about that live energy of people that really, really excited me. I often, in a stage space, I often felt that I fed off that energy. But at the same time, the traditionality of theater, the binary that it creates between, the audience and the performer, the receiver and the giver, that always irked me, especially because I realized how much I was saying, I fed off that energy, that, that felt like an unequal space. And theater for me, became this medium of exploration of self and the ability to connect with another human being. I didn't access the space as an artist. Like, I don't call myself an artist. I don't agree to the word, because I think the word itself carries a lot of elitism to it. Like, who's allowed to be an artist? So Zoom, I think what it did for me was open up a space in that thread of connection, in that thread of in that ability to be able to connect with the quintessential sort of other, right? Which I was quite bad at. Like, digital was a very distant space, and because I'd worked for a long time on digital spaces, like digital was like I learned how to manipulate social media, etc., etc. I always mistrusted digital spaces. Like, I'd never trust what I see, what I read on digital spaces, because I'd learned how to create those. So I think this performance kind of broke those barriers, and I think it got back. It came back to me, and in ways enriched how I'm able to digitally connect without, connect with more people without thinking that, oh, this is only a facade. Like, the most common approach to digitality is that, right? Like, people are putting up a show, there is a certain curation to it, right? But so is our real lives, like at any point in time. And any public facing scenario, there is a curation that we're constantly doing to ourselves, like what we are presenting. And I think, again, the crossroads between erotica and digital, that was very specifically for me for this show, because like I start, like, because I was the character of Kadomborie, she's a sex worker, right? She's a digital sex worker. So I actually did some sex work for a little while and tried to sort of, it still comes from a very elitist space, right? Me actually choosing to do it, me actually, figuring out a company which, does these phone sex therapists. And so the story that you see Kadomborie telling, part of that is real, part of that is fictionalized. So, but then the reality of it, what Oisharjo was actually doing on the phone, she was embodying Kadomborie's character while talking to these clients, right? So, like I was saying earlier, for me, that mesh of reality and digital, like, there's not a strong separation between the digital and the real. I think Zoom, this display and its contexts, just helped further consolidate that sense of self.
So then, just to moderate a little bit the flow. So now, I mean, it would be very, very lovely also to hear from Dr. Bhattacharjya. And then, Sophie, you also raised your hand. Is this right? You did? No, that was a mistake. Okay, so then it's easy. Just pass the word to Dr. Bhattacharjya.
Thank you, Kai. I was going to respond. I'm also not a performer, but I have, over time, one performs as an academic. I've been also a dancer. So the proscenium experience I have experienced, and there are certain rules in that. And I realized that this was different. And I remember one particular instance when I was doing my piece in one of the rehearsals, and the bell rang. And I thought, should I open the door? But I can't, because I'm now on stage, and I cannot open the door now. I knew it's my son, and he needs to be let into the house, but I didn't. I continued, and he rang the bell again and again. And so I followed what I thought were the traditional rules that you ignore, but Now, in retrospect, I realized that actually, no, I had a choice. I could have opened the door, integrated that into my performance, which is what documentary theater I understood from Anuja, from no, not the fraud, from Mrs. Lonelyhearts. That's what that is. So I realized that, I think the pandemic has taught us, has tested how flexible and agile we are. And this process also has sort of taught me that how much of your life you want to integrate into your performance, there is a choice in that. And you can really engage with that nicely. I think there were elements though of our show that a lot of it was conventional, in the sense we had an amazing a person who came in technical support, who sort of did the lights, who looked at my space and said that, oh, should we have the curtain drawn or should we have the curtain shut? Let's keep the curtains open because you can see the twinkling lights of Bombay in the night. And you'll be able to see the other skyscrapers and the lights. So there were these small decisions that made it feel like a production, which was also very exciting. And I think we had a great team to help us do that as well.
All right. Also tracking a little bit the time, I would now say let's start to close it. But maybe before, I just want to give the opportunity to everybody of us to share thoughts or to annotate, to comment if there's still something that you would say is still unsaid, unmentioned, unexplored. So like the last round, open to everybody.
I just want to say that I'm still very busy with Mrs. Lonelyhearts' explications and comments on the situation that the public was curated. And I think this is perhaps an important question too. And also for that, there's this lady Anuja who is like stealing your performance, which is, I'm so sorry for this, really. I will leak about it. Don't be afraid. We will fight for you. And but don't we have the right as people from left wing, whatever, being like in one community in non-Zoom life, to have our performances too? This is like one question for us, and still we have to learn a lot of things. I learned a lot from your performance, and I'm so very grateful for this. And then perhaps only if we learn and have like exercises and training centers. It might be like a training center for erotica, and via erotica as a metaphor for diversity and openness and acknowledgement and equity. Then perhaps we can go further and see how to meet people where we don't feel where we are in risk, where we are in risky situations. Perhaps it's we must do it like step by step in a way, and because we also need some things. So it's if there ever will be people saying that, oh, if it's curated, then it's not and it's not risky enough, then we don't give money anymore for this online stuff, and all goes to this Mrs. Anuja. Ooh.
I'm immediately unfriending her on Facebook and unfollowing her on Instagram.
Yeah, that's good. Let's close it with let's make it a real social media conversation and wrap it up with a boycott call against Anuja. That's a very authentic quote.
Thank you for the solidarity. I really appreciate the solidarity in those statements.
Here you go. So, like I said in the beginning of this conversation, this was a part of the Respectful Net Theater Channel's series the laboratory, internet as a side of play. And what we tried to talk about in this series is to talk about chance discovers, messy beginnings, vivid inventions on our way to find a fresh language for making performances in the digital age and in digital times, let's say. And I think unpacking Mrs. Lonelyhearts Club together with herself and these performers and Lotte really contributed to this series. And I'm really thankful for all your inputs, your thoughts, your insights, your critical comments, your calls for solidarity and boycott. So that was something remarkable, and yeah, I don't have more to do than just to say once more, thank you all, and yeah, goodbye, and hopefully see you soon, and all best with all further endeavors.